believer that this team's going to win the national championships.
The rivalries, it's up there on top of the list, man. And if we allow them to devalue it, we lose a lot of what makes college football special. Don't let them do it. Don't let them devalue what it means to you. Welcome in, it's your friend Juck. Appreciate you so much for joining me on a Monday morning. The Bucks are back. It is game week again. Not a victory Monday, but kind of victorious as the second bye week now over. Next year, back to just one bye week as we've had two these last 2 years. That's not a rule change, just an anomaly. Every year they start the football season right after this week and they end it right after this week on the calendar. And in between these two time periods, there are usually 13 Saturdays. In the way the calendar fell the last 2 years, last year and this year, there were 14. So they just said, we'll give them all 2 bye weeks. Next year, back to normal, just one bye. And I love it because I hate the bye weeks or the open weeks, if you will. I know a lot of people get irritated about that. The open week, we will not have another week off until after the Big Ten championship game. And if Ohio State wins that Big Ten championship game, should they get there, we're talking about the same situation that Oregon had last year that they pissed and moaned about all offseason. The first round of the playoffs is December 19th and 20th. But if you win the Big Ten championship game, which takes place on December 6th, you're not playing the following week. Honestly, if Ohio State and Indiana go into that matchup at number 1 and number 2 in the Big Ten championship, remember this year, it's just the straight 4 seeds. So if Ohio State goes into that game number 1 and loses to number 2 Indiana, how far will they drop? If they're undefeated, there'll be one loss to Indiana. Will their wins be good enough to keep them in that top 4? I think there's a good chance of that. So if they do go into that Big Ten championship and they're 1 and 2, there's a real good chance they have a bye regardless, whether they win or not, as long as it's a close game. And should they get that bye, the playoff quarterfinals will be their first game, and that is December 31st, which means from the Big Ten championship, bye week in the playoffs to December 31st, 24 days they got to wait between the Big Ten champ and that semi-quarterfinal game. Last year, Michigan to Tennessee was 20 days that we had to wait. 24, I think it's a day longer than Oregon had to wait last year. So we're going to find out just how much that delay really factors in. And Oregon was all off season talking about that wait, man. I mean, a huge excuse. And what they were saying to kind of support their point was every team that got the bye week last year lost when they played in the playoffs. And that was clearly because all 4 teams were not as good. They were all underdogs. Georgia wasn't as good as Notre Dame. Boise State wasn't as good as Oregon. I'm sorry, Boise State wasn't as good as Penn State. Oregon wasn't as good as Ohio State. And Arizona State wasn't as good as Texas. So the worst team got the bye because they had the funky seeding last year. That's done. Straight seeds 1 through 4 this year. And that means it won't be like that. So those teams were all underdogs. Matter of fact, I was just going through this and I couldn't even believe it. So I don't know how I didn't notice this, but last year, there was not a single upset in this playoff. Round 1, Texas was favored over Clemson. They beat them. Ohio State favored over Tennessee. They beat them. Penn State was favored over SMU, and Notre Dame was favored over Indiana. All favorites won round 1. Round 2, Ohio State was favored over Oregon. Penn State favored over Boise. Notre Dame favored over Georgia. They sure were. And Texas was favored over Arizona State. Round 3, Ohio State was favored over Texas. Notre Dame was favored over Penn State. And in the national championship game, Ohio State was favored over Notre Dame. Not a single flipping upset the entire playoff. The chalkiest playoff we've ever seen in any sport of my life. So I do think the Buckeyes are going to get that bye week. And I do think we are going to have to twiddle our thumbs for 24 days. And that's something they're going to need to address, man. That is just, that's too long between championship week. I mean, at the most, that should be 20 days, right? 10 days, that's kind of the sweet spot. I think they determined 10 days. Ryan Day said he loved it in between games. That would be 20 then in that case. So 24, way too much. But we got a long way to go till that. Still 5 regular season games to go, 7 in the books for the Buckeyes. And Penn State this week And we will talk plenty about Penn State this week as we are getting a clearer picture after last Saturday's games as to who the legit contenders are, who the frauds are. I did a video about Brian Kelly that I loved doing last night. And we will talk Penn State again this week with Landon Tangwell. We'll talk to him at some point. Matter of fact, I'll be on his show, I think, Thursday. I'll let you guys know because we'll kind of do a back and forth Penn State, Ohio State deal together. But the top three in the AP, it hasn't stayed the same since weeks 2, 3, and 4 when it was Ohio State, Penn State, and LSU. Now that we're getting fuller bodies of work, we've got 2 weeks in a row with Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M. And week 10, we got the same three, despite that Indiana team blowing out UCLA and a lot of people calling for them to potentially be number one. And this is what happens when you beat the hell out of weak opponents, right? Let's be honest. UCLA, they were hot, they're coming into that game against Indiana. And that doesn't make them a good team. They were hot. They're not a good team. And Indiana mollywopped them, beat them by more than 50. This year on the season, there are only 2 games that an interconference game has been won by 50 points. Indiana, the winner of both of those games. So when they beat you down, and they beat you down bad, as we know. Texas A&M is a defined number 3. Seen a lot of people talk about Indiana deserving that number 1. And again, this whole deserve thing, like the AP poll is not an honor bestowed upon someone. It's a bunch of people voting on who they think is the best team and slotting them in order. Me personally, if this were about deserving and I was a voter and there's 3 undefeateds, Ohio State, Texas A&M, and Indiana, the 2 of them who scheduled big time out of conference games, like Texas A&M going to Notre Dame and Ohio State playing Texas, they're the ones that, like, I'm easily throwing Indiana out by scheduling the 3 FCS opponents out of conference. Sorry, if this is about deserve, you're out of here if there's 3 undefeated teams. That's the price you pay for doing it that way to some of us. And if I was voting and it was a deserve thing, like that's how I would go about it. But it's not about that, and it isn't about resume either. It's not a resume ranker. Each individual voter takes everything into account, and then they rank based on who they think the best teams are. And everybody has their own processes. And if they think Ohio State is the better team, they're going to rank them number 1, regardless of what their resume says. And that's just the way it is. Now, they did change some people's minds. Indiana did yesterday. They got, I think, 9 first-place votes out of the 66. Ohio State dominated the rest. You may be someone bright enough to recognize that Ohio State is not putting the hammer down on everybody like Indiana is. They're pulling off the dogs or never really getting the dogs started in a lot of these games, and they've chosen to do that. And I think it's clear that a lot of judges recognize that if Ohio State wanted to, they could probably beat teams by 50 as well. I mean, I imagine they could. Indiana played 76 plays against UCLA. Ohio State's average 60. That is an entire quarter more of offensive football at Ohio State's pace. So it would be like them playing 5 offensive quarters to get to what Indiana's putting down there with 76 plays. So they've chosen not to do that. I am really curious. As we saw last game, they opened it up a bit more, really exciting. They let the play margin go up to almost 70 from 60. What do we see against Penn State? Do we see more of a conservative route again, like it had been before? Or do we see something similar to last game where they're letting Julian sling it around the yard and we're going to go score some points? Or are they going to say, we're going to let the defense win this? We just got to win, just got to win, just got to win. I'm curious to see. Obviously, you got animosity here, but Penn State maybe not the opponent that they were, though I do think there is a chance here that we see them get way up for this game and give an effort that, as long as Ethan Grunkmeyer is, decent. Ohio State's run defense hasn't been great. Katron Allen averaging over 6 yards a carry has been really good. The offensive line's good. That defensive line's still good. I mean, these guys got pieces and parts that are really high level. Can they put up a game? I think they can. If they can come together and have the right attitude, I think they're a really worthy opponent. So how the Buckeyes play this, it's going to be really interesting because they're guessing too. Like, what are these guys going to bring? It's a team that already quit But can they pull it together for this game? I think they can, and I think it's definitely a game to be concerned about for sure. Indiana, are they better than Ohio State? They're damn good, man. They're damn good. But to me, despite how good they are, the talent gap man to man on that field is still pretty wide. On a neutral field, I think Ohio State would be a 3-point favorite right now. I'm going to check on that. I'll let you know. I'll let you know tomorrow what I get. I'm going to talk to some of the guys who do these kind of numbers that figure that stuff out. I'm going to find out. But Saturday, we had Indiana covering the 26.5 points against UCLA, who had just won the 3 games in a row. And coming into that, Indiana, it was a bloodbath from the beginning. 56-6, they win, and they only scored 7 in the fourth quarter. I mean, they just, what was it, 35-3 at halftime? Just absolutely destroyed them. 213 passing yards on the day, which is good because Fernando Mendoza could have passed for probably 500, and that is Julian Sands, one of his 2 top competitors for the Heisman. They had 262 rushing yards, 76 total plays. Again, Ohio State playing just 60 on the year. That is between 125th and 136th on the season. Now, some may not care about Ohio State being number 1. I do. I'm someone who cares about that because all-time weeks at number 1 is a statistic that some of us nerds use to do things like rank college football programs throughout the years. And currently, there is a team that has the most weeks at number 1. This is Ohio State versus Alabama. If you look down to the very bottom, you'll see Alabama at first with 141 weeks at number 1 in the AP poll. Ohio State second at 114. Now, of these categories, the ones that are highlighted scarlet, Ohio State has them in. The ones that are crimson, Alabama has Ohio State in. And you can see that the Buckeyes own 8 of those 12 categories, which is fantastic. Buckeyes, number 1 in the Juck on Bucks all-time program ranker because there's more things than national championships or claimed national championships, as it were. But currently, Ohio State, Indiana sitting number 1 and 2. And I kind of love this. I kind of love this for the Big Ten. But I do got to say, there's been a lot of people who've been really happy about this Indiana story. Now, I've loved this story. It's been incredible to watch. The defense is even great. Like they kind of got it all. And it's been cool. I was rooting for them to beat Oregon. I would pretty much root for them to beat anybody else in the Big Ten at this point, like a high-level matchup with USC or with Michigan, any of the top dogs, Penn State. But we got to deal with these guys now, and they're damn good, man. And we've seen them slaughter guys by 50, and then we got to play them next. So it started with Nebraska last year. They beat Nebraska by 50 at home, and Nebraska was undefeated. Then Nebraska comes into the shoe, and Ohio State struggled with them. Granted, Ohio State was coming off a bye week, and the loss to Oregon, they didn't have their mojo at that point. But then we see them do it again this year. At the beginning of the year, they destroy Illinois by 50 again. And then Buckeyes get them. And I think the Buckeyes beat Illinois. I think they destroyed them just as bad, even though it didn't show on the scoreboard. I think the Buckeyes beat them really, really bad. And now we're going to have to face UCLA, who they've just beat 50. So we will play UCLA again. And every time these guys beat somebody by 50, they pass them off to us. And it's like the measuring stick. Ohio State's not going to beat somebody by 50. They're just not going to do it. Not that they cannot do it, but that's not the way they're going to play. So by comparison, it's not going to look as good. And people have been using this against Ohio State, using that Illinois game, saying, well, they got a like opponent. And it's true that the committee does this too. However, I don't give a damn, and we don't need to give a damn about the committee because Ohio State is not going to have 2 losses that they're going to need to worry about slotting them in at the bottom. They're not going to have 3 losses and potentially miss this thing. And that's really the only time resume is going to factor into this. Going to the Big Ten championship, going to win that puppy in Indianapolis and go ahead and get that bye week and automatic qualifier from the Big Ten. But the playoff picture continues to look clearer and clearer. And let's do a quick run through of a few of these games that we talked about on Friday, how they turned out. Number 1 was that Washington-Illinois game that I thought was the Big Ten's best hope to get a team in the playoff was the winner of this game. a fourth team. Sorry. Top 3 teams are going to make it for sure. Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon. The fourth team that can make this thing is either Michigan, if they beat Ohio State, they got to win from now to then, and they beat Ohio State, or USC if they run the table, or Nebraska if they run the table. Now, USC would have to beat, I believe, Nebraska and Oregon to get through. Nebraska would have to beat USC, Iowa. I think maybe even another tough game. So Nebraska's cooked. They're cooked. We'll get to them. But Washington and Illinois, the winner of this game was going to have the best route, and it was going to be Illinois. Illinois' schedule set up where if they beat Washington, they had this thing wrapped up. I mean, they're walking to the playoffs. At least they're walking at 10-2. Does that mean they make it for certain? No, it doesn't, but probably does. Indiana wouldn't have made it at 10-2 last year. It just depends how they view Illinois. While Illinois would have not really had any big-time wins, their only losses would have been number 1 and number 2 in the country. Tough situation. I think they'd have gotten in, but they didn't win. They went out there, and Damon was awesome. He had 4 touchdowns, 6 touchdowns in the red zone. Big day for Denzel Boston. He even threw a touchdown as well as catching one in like 150 yards. And Illinois is just a good team. They're just a good team. They're not a playoff team. They gave up 40 points in their last 6 games, man. Simply not worthy. They're not worthy of making the playoffs. And if they were in the playoffs, they'd probably get embarrassed. They're not good enough. Washington, on the other hand, they're good. And they need to run the table now. Can they do it? Their only 2 losses have been at home to Ohio State and at Michigan, a team that had just come off getting embarrassed at USC, that had everything in the world to play for. Washington is a young team going on the road. Left on their schedule, they have got at Wisconsin, Purdue at home, UCLA, and then Oregon. The final week of the year, the showdown, it'll be in Autzen. And that is going to be a banger, man. That is going to be an absolute banger. Now, you'd think it's a foregone conclusion that the top of the conference, the top conference in the country, the Big Ten, the SEC, that if you're 10-2, you're going to get the benefit of the doubt and you're going to get in. I would think that Washington would get that benefit of the doubt as well, just like I think Illinois would, because of the 2 losses they got to Ohio State and Michigan, 2 ranked teams. If they were to run the table and beat Oregon in the process, I think they're absolutely in, despite the fact that they've been undervalued all year. And it is kind of crazy, and it shows that the AP, what they've been thinking of Washington, like the fact that they're 6-2, and we're going to go over at the end of the show, the 6-2 Big Ten teams that are not in the playoffs. I'm sorry, not in the AP poll. I'm stumbling everywhere today. The 6-2 Big Ten teams that aren't in the poll versus the 6-2 SEC teams that are in the poll. And it shows a little bit of hypocrisy, I think. I don't really like it. And I'm not some Big Ten chest pumper. I just like an even, Steven, fair playing field here, and I'm not seeing it. Moving on to another game in the Great Northwest, Oregon took on Wisconsin, and they beat them 21-7. Way closer than it should have been in a very rainy day. And Oregon was wearing Grateful Dead-inspired uniforms. And I got to get the official Juckeye opinion on this thing. We got to get a vote here. Do you like the Grateful Dead uniforms? So first off, they got the logo with the Grateful Dead logo turned into a duck face. Then they got the dancing bears on the back of the helmet. We got tie-dyed numbers. And the tie-in for them and the Grateful Dead is apparently the Grateful Dead on their tours from 74 to 94 did annual concerts at Autzen Stadium. Personally, I think the uniforms are fantastic. I love these ones. And Oregon does things different, man. It's just different. I think it's cool to be different. If you have one thing that's your thing, lean into it and just do it awesome. And I think they really pulled this one off. I'm also someone who enjoyed the Grateful Dead a little bit from like 15 to 17 with my buddies. So always kind of cool when I hear the Grateful Dead. It takes me back to that time. And I thought it was pretty cool. So you guys tell me what you think. But the first thing I want to say about this game is we've talked a lot about Luke Fickell. This guy's team played tough as nails, man. They've won 2 games this year. They're going out to Oregon. He has not lost this team. They have doubled down. They're playing hard as heck for him. And my gosh, does he deserve another shot? Absolutely. Absolutely. Now that we've seen this AD come out and essentially admit that they were not investing any money in players, absolutely he deserves another shot. If he can keep a team engaged through this, I think he's doing a really good job. Like, that's just impressive as hell to me. Overmatched like this, overmatched against Ohio State, and the dudes are just playing hard as heck. Now, there was a lot of rain. In addition to the rain, Dante Moore got knocked out of the game. A forearm kind of came through. A forearm came through like this and smacked him right in the nose really hard. And his nose was bleeding like crazy, gushing blood. Some people have made fun of him for leaving the game for a bloody nose, but you know, you get popped in the nose like that, it affects your eyes, it affects your vision. I'm sure that there was a little more to it than a bloody nose, but he got pulled out. Now, he wasn't doing great anyway. He was 9 of 15 with a QBR of 36 before he exited the game. And when we look at that in his entire year, he's done really well, but he's not on Julian Sainz level. Now, the Oregon fans were pretty irritated. Apparently in the post-game press conference, a reporter was saying that the Oregon fans are irritated that they're using Brock Thomas as their number 2 quarterback. Now, he's a walk-on from Eugene, Oregon, which I would think would make them really happy because there are barely any players from Oregon on the roster, but they're not. They wanted Austin Novosad, who was a highly ranked prospect. Both of these dudes sophomores. But the kid did good. He did really good. Here's Lanning's answer when he was asked about that.
Fans are still very much fretting about the backup quarterback situation, Dan. Just what aren't Austin or Luke doing, or what do they need?
Like, our backup quarterback went 4 for 4 tonight. We won the game.
You don't have to tell me. I'm just.
Well, then tell them. I mean, they should go to our locker room and see them carry Brock Thomas up in the locker room after the game. Like, our players see it every day in practice. When has Brock come in and not performed well for us this season? He's done what we've asked him to do every time he's come in. So people should stop worrying about it. And they should also know that those other quarterbacks are doing a really good job in practice too. But Brock's playing well, guys, right? Watch the film.
People should stop worrying about it. I don't like that. It's very dismissive. Though I can see how that would be annoying. Why are you asking me like this is a negative thing when this guy just came in and, you know, we won the game. He went 4-4. But what it does speak to, I suppose, from their point of view is, look, you got 2 freshmen, you got this very highly rated quarterback. Why is he not beating the walk-on out? They're the same year. If he's not, then did you mess up? Was this a misevaluation? Like, this kid should be beating this walk-on out. And I'm assuming, I'll dig into this further as to what their deal is, or if that guy was just making it up that the fans were saying that's a potential too. I don't know if that was the same guy that he always gets in a tizzy with. Maybe the Duck guys can tell me in the comments here. We've got some that definitely watch every day. What's the deal with this? Is this an issue of Austin Novosad? He should be out there because, you know, he was a highly touted guy. I think that's probably what's going on here. But their running game continues to impress. 2 freshman running backs that Ohio State was after, both of them, Jordan Davison and De'Aaron Hill out of Illinois. Jordan Davison looked great in this game, and he's for real, man. He is now on the season, 352 yards, 6.9 a carry on the season. De'Aaron Hill, 357 yards, 9.9 yards a carry on the season, and they're beasts, man. They are beasts. Noah Whittington is another one that showed out this game. Noah Whittington, not the skills that either of those two have, despite a couple of the Oregon fans jarring with me last year that he was faster than Travion Henderson and a better running back. That didn't turn out to be true. Shout out Trey, who had a good game for the Patriots yesterday, 70 yards. Vrabel finally letting him play. That's awesome. Oregon cornerback Brandon Finney is a monster. Ohio State waited too long to offer him. They got him, and he was like the throw-in corner. I mean, a good corner, but he wasn't, you know, their headliner. They had headliners, one of whom Naeem offered not playing. Brandon Finney's the dog, man. He is a dog. So they got themselves one there. Wisconsin quarterback Hunter Simmons was like 7 for 20, and he threw 4 picks, 1 touchdown. So with all that, Wisconsin was able to keep this thing 21-7, and props to them. Oregon now with one loss, they've still got to play Iowa, Washington, and USC. At Iowa and at Washington, there's a chance they could lose 2 of these games. Like, Iowa's getting better. Matter of fact, let's go there now. Iowa beats Minnesota 41-3. There are some people trying to say that Minnesota was a good football team heading into this weekend. That's not a good football team. PJ Fleck falls to 1-8 in his career against Iowa. And it's one thing to get blown out by Ohio State. Nobody's going to knock you too much for that. But you just got blown out by Iowa, and that should never be something that anybody can say about you. You gave up 40 points to Iowa, man. That's disgraceful. It really is. Some weird stats came out of this game, man. 41 points Iowa puts up on the game. They played under 60 plays offensively, just 275 total yards. They were just 4 of 12 on third down. I don't know how you scored 41 points. They did have one punt return for a touchdown. Man, there was a lot of punt returns for touchdowns yesterday. It must be nice. But Iowa will now move to 6-2 on the year, 4-1 in the Big Ten. And we may have been underselling Iowa as a potential playoff candidate. So I don't think they're going to make it because they have to host Oregon. They've got to go to USC, and they've got to play Michigan State and Nebraska. So the odds of them running the table with this not very good quarterback from the FCS that we thought might be good, Mark Gronowski, not very good to run the table, but the potential is there. Iowa's still live, and one of these teams might pop up and do this. Nebraska, another one that has a shot. Nebraska, a team that Minnesota just beat the brakes off of last Friday, plays Northwestern at home. Now, Northwestern, not a bad team. They had, I think, 4 wins or 4-2 coming into the game, maybe 4-3. Nebraska wins 28-21. And the Nebraska folk were really happy after this win. They struggled. They had a 15-point lead late. They let the Nerds come back and tie it up. Matt Rule said Dylan Raiola showed tremendous resolve after he threw a late pick in the game, and then Nebraska got it back after Northwestern fumbled it right back to them at the 50. So, I'm sorry, Northwestern had 5 wins into the game. They were 5-2 coming into the game. So they had beaten UCLA, Penn State, and Purdue, played Oregon pretty tough in the first half. This is a good Northwestern team. They're getting better. And I was thinking, I can't wait till Ohio State, they're getting better at the right time. They got the new stadium being built. As soon as the Buckeyes play there, we got to go, guys. We got to go. It's a tradition to take over their stadium. We used to take over old Ryan Field. This stadium looks awesome. Have you seen it? You got to check it out. It's a smaller stadium, and it's designed in a way so that the upper deck, apparently, you are closer to the field in these upper deck seats than you are in any other upper deck in college football. Somehow they have designed this with the proximity of the field of the seating. It's just way closer to the action. There's all sorts of cool little sections that you can, if you want to spend more, you can do that. But it looks awesome. Just looks amazing. And I really want to check this stadium out, which I will when the Buckeyes play there, and you will too. So no shame on Nebraska for having this tough game against Northwestern, who was 5-2 and a legit 5-2. Nebraska now moves to 6-2 overall and bowl eligibility, which last year was the first time they had gotten there in several years, and they were really, really happy. Matt Rule says this year, nobody even mentioned it. It was just, whatever. Of course, we're going to a bowl. Their biggest test of the season since the Michigan game this upcoming weekend, as they've got USC, 7:30 on NBC. That'll be a fun one. Their offensive line sucks. It's subpar. They're not a playoff team, and they're not going to make the playoffs. They'll probably get embarrassed by USC because their offensive line sucks. And this, to me, is a dereliction of duty by Matt Rule. 3 years now, 3 years, and this isn't rocket science, man. If you get the opportunity early on in your tenure at a place to change the entire trajectory of your program, and that opportunity is Dylan Raiola, a 5-star quarterback, and it doesn't matter how good he is. He's good enough to start. Here's the difference, right? When you get a guy like that, you've got a set amount of funds to spend. Do you spread them out between defense in offense? Or do you just make sure that 5-star quarterback has weapons and an offensive line, and you do whatever you can on the defense? You've got to go that way. You've got to maximize him because he's the difference maker on your team. And even if he doesn't end up being as good as maybe some hoped, you've got to get him drafted, and you got to get him drafted high. That's your only shot at getting another 5-star quarterback. And that's how you turn this thing around or take it from this level to the next level. But Matt didn't do that. He was too busy thinking about how he can have the easiest schedule possible and not worrying about how to build an offense to support the 5-star quarterback. In his next podcast, which he's doing a podcast, a terrible podcast, he had Dan Wolken on his podcast. That guy's horrible, the worst sports writer in the country, and Dave Portnoy recently on his podcast. No chance in hell that I would want that guy at Penn State. I don't know what some of them are thinking. What has he done that's ever been better than James Franklin? He turned around Baylor, and he turned around Temple. James Franklin turned around Vanderbilt, brought Penn State from not so good to consistent 10 wins. They got the same exact resume, man. James Franklin, way more successful. I don't know why. Like, I kind of get it that he is a Penn State guy and he loves Penn State, and that's very appealing. Luke Fickell loves Ohio State. Do you want Luke Fickell? I mean, no, you don't. You might want Marcus. I'm saying if we didn't have a coach. But you wouldn't want Luke Fickell. He loves Ohio State. So let's get to the Michigan State game. 31-20 Michigan wins. Bryce Underwood was taking selfies with fans on the sidelines, up in the stands before the game was over. I thought that was really classless, but team stats, first downs were even, third down were even, yardage, slight advantage Michigan, 362 to 305. Michigan State got called for 12 penalties for 105 yards, man. Imagine that, 105 yards. How torturous would that be to watch your team do that? That is coaching issues, buddy. Coaching issues. The turnover battle was even. Midway through the fourth quarter, Michigan State had the ball at the Michigan 27-yard line. 4th and 3. They could line up and kick a 44-yarder and pull within 8 points. So it would have been a one-score game. And they decided to go for it, and they failed to convert. Then the ensuing possession, Justice Haynes for Michigan fumbles at midfield. Michigan State takes it down again now to the 29, and they got a 4th and 1, and they can't convert on the 4th and 1. Their coach, Jonathan Smith, it's just not working out, man. Guy's got no passion. Bryce Underwood had a rough game. He was bad. He said, my running backs stepped it up, and they sure did, my running backs. Justice Haynes with 152 yards. Jordan Marshall with 110, including a 56-yarder to seal it. Underwood was 8 for 17, less than 50% completion percentage for 86 total yards. That big mouth Samaj Morgan, no help. A ball hit him right in the shoulder pads and dropped off. Here's this for an insane stat. Bryce Underwood's receivers now have a total of 17 drops on the year. Ohio State had 3 drops against Texas, have not had one since. So 17 drops for Skunk Weasels, 3 for Buckeyes. His completion percentage on the year is 61%. His adjusted completion percentage, when you factor in the drops, 73. It's pretty damn good. But that goes to show if they bring in some wide receivers and another year under his belt, yeah, there's promise there. Julian's adjusted completion percentage is 85. And we're not talking a huge difference here. But Justice Haynes, man, sensational. 26 carries. I thought that wasn't allowed in college football anymore. 26 carries for a guy. I thought 20-year-olds couldn't handle that anymore. 150 yards, 6.3 a carry. Jordan Marshall, 110. And this is so ironic to me, man. Jordan Marshall, an Ohio kid. Tony Alfrod doesn't want to go after the Ohio kid, who is the number 4 running back in the country. He wants to go after the number 8 running back in the country because he's out of Texas, James Peoples. And now Jordan Marshall up there averaging 5.5 yards a carry, reunited with Tony Alford, who screwed up his recruitment down here. 3.5 yards after contact, 5 touchdowns, 21 missed tackles forced for Marshall. He's got a good offensive line. They run the ball really well. They always do. He's been better than Peoples, and I don't mean just statistically. And it sucks, man, because that's just a tough Ohio boy, and I hated seeing him go there and watching him be successful there. I mean, good for him. He was Mr. Ohio. It irks me every time I see it. And the Michigan State head coach, Jonathan Smith, man, this guy, no emotion on his face, just stone face, strange looking dude. Sharon Moore, also very emotionless, man. You talk about 2 sticks in the mud here between these 2 guys. Of course, Sharon Moore gets all cocky after he wins and shoots arrows and stuff. But you know what? If you let him win, I think that's classless. The shooting of the arrows on the field, but you let him win. Like, let the kids do that, man. The coach doesn't need to do all that. Act like you've been there before. But if you let him win, there it is. What would you do if you ever saw Ryan Day shoot an arrow? Oh, man. I'm thinking about this game, guys. What do you do if you're Michigan and Arvell Reese is spying Bryce Underwood and they're loading up to stop the run? What are you going to do? You're going to rely on this guy's arm. All right. Maybe you score 2 touchdowns, score 14 points. Okay, what then? I can't wait for this game. I'm getting super arrogant excited here. I feel myself getting arrogantly excited about this game. I'm sure I won't feel that the week of the game, but I'm getting pretty excited. Let's go over to the SEC, man. And let's start with the guys that are trying to ruin Ohio State's resume. Texas, a stunning comeback that everybody's raving about at Mississippi State. Overtime win. They were down by 17 late. And Sarkisian was talking about this was a program win, their toughness. Last week, they went to overtime to beat Kentucky. So they needed overtime to beat Kentucky and Mississippi State. This game after NFL reporter Diana Rossini had reported that Sark was interested in the NFL, he was furious about that report. And here's what he had to say after the game about said report.
For a second, because it really pisses me off that one person can make a report that in turn the entire media sports world runs with as factual, to the point of my agency and my agents have to put a statement out that they never have done. Historically, CAA, Jimmy Sexton, and Ed Manowitz have never do that. But I had to do that to protect my locker room and my team. And I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. I thought it was completely unprofessional of that person to put that report out. And the fact that everybody ran with it is borderline embarrassing for the media. And I respect what you guys do. I really do. And everybody else. But the fact that everybody ran that as truth is really embarrassing. Okay, so I've got a small circle when I make decisions on what I do and what I don't do, and nobody would speak on my behalf without me knowing. And so where that report came from, I'd love to talk to that person because it's absolutely ridiculous.
Diana Rossini, coach. It came from Diana Rossini. Go talk to her. Notice he didn't say, by the way, I didn't do that. I deny it. I don't want to go to the NFL. He didn't say that. He said the report was he was embarrassed about it. Was inaccurate. All right, well, what do you got to say about what was in the report? And that was he was interested in talking to some NFL teams. Are you interested? I don't know. I mean, I get the fact that if you're a guy in a situation he's in, you don't want that crap coming around your locker room. You don't want those guys thinking that. I get it. And I do often side with the coaches on these matters sometimes. There are a lot of times where it's clear that they intentionally leak things, but I don't know what this woman was hearing. It certainly doesn't seem like it came from Sark or his camp. But Texas wins 45-38. A punt return for a touchdown got him back in it. Boy, it must be nice with these punt returns for touchdowns, changing games for everybody. Arch, my son said that he thought he was terrible. I mean, he put up big stats. 29 for 46 for 346. 3 touchdowns, rushed for another touchdown. Then he got knocked out of the game at the end. And he got hit so hard that I don't think he'll be in next week either. Star wide receiver Ryan Wingo had like 13 targets and caught 5 balls. So either a combination of inaccurate passes and drops. Like, that is not good. But he did get himself a career high 186. Remember, that's the guy that was better than Jeremiah. So the backup quarterback comes in, throws the touchdown, wins the game. These guys technically still in the playoff hunt. They've only got 2 losses, but now they welcome in number 9 Vanderbilt. Then they go to Georgia. They could probably lose both of those. Then they've got Arkansas and Texas A&M. They could lose 3 of those. They'll be underdogs in 3 of those. And we're looking at maybe a 7-5 Texas team. 7-5 probably. I think 8-4 is maybe the best that you could wish for as a Texas fan, the way these guys are playing. They have not had one impressive win all year. Not one. In a crazy turn of events from the team that made it to the semifinals 2 years in a row. And this was going to be a big time year. Man, you think about the teams that were like supposed to be the teams this year. Clemson, Penn State, Texas, LSU. I already did a video about Brian Kelly. I'm sure you've heard by now. Brian Kelly terminated by Louisiana State for being a total fraud. And this guy, the singular most hated coach in the country. I did a poll. I did an official Juck on Bucks poll. I know. He hated way more than Lincoln Riley, which surprised me. I didn't think he'd be hated that much more than Lincoln because I think they're really similar. But dude is a straight up huckster. I love it. I just can't stand him. Vanderbilt, 17, Missouri 10. Bo Pribula, Missouri quarterback, got his leg buckled back, looked like a bone broken, and he'll be out for the rest of the year. Now, that sucks for Missouri. Their playoff hopes probably done now. They've just got 2 losses, but they got a really talented freshman quarterback, Matt Zollers. He was a really highly ranked recruit out of Pennsylvania, and maybe he can put some magic together. Who knows? But this game was boring as hell, man. Boring as hell. Missouri had 8 penalties in the game. 8 penalties, and they are one of the least penalized team in the country. They go into Vanderbilt. All of a sudden, they get 8 penalties. Some extremely consequential ones at really big times as well. I don't know. If I was a conspiracy theorist, I might think something was up. I might think someone was trying to prop up Vanderbilt for the story value of it. Eli Drinkowitz was not too happy about it. Not too happy about it all. But Vandy looks like a clear playoff team now. And I think that they most likely will make the playoffs this year. They have got Texas A&M, Mississippi State, Oklahoma. That's who Missouri has. Missouri has Texas A&M, Mississippi State, Oklahoma, Arkansas. So they're pretty cooked with Zollers, their freshman quarterback. Now, that Texas A&M team, which last week, Texas A&M and Arkansas went down to the wire, and Texas A&M wins. Then they whoop LSU this week, and all of a sudden everybody thinks they're like definitively like they should maybe be number 1. Is this a matter of A&M being that good or LSU not being that good? Because I think maybe it's a little bit of both. The second half, Texas A&M just absolutely beat them to a pulp. Quarterback Marcel Reed really turning into a dude. 100 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns, 200 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns, but also 2 picks. A punt return for a touchdown for the Aggies on the day. That's Texas A&M, Iowa, and Texas, all with 3 big back-breaking punt returns on the day. I don't think LSU is good at all, and I think a lot of people use Texas A&M beating them to accelerate the process to get Kelly out, but they're just not very good. And Texas A&M, I don't think they're great either, but I do think that when you are going into LSU at night, it's just a really tough place to play. It's a tough environment. and it gets you a lot of points. Not to mention Texas or LSU, the single most, how do I phrase this? Teams have the most penalties called when they're playing LSU than anybody else. 9.8 penalties is what the opponent averages when they're playing LSU. 3.8 for Ohio State. So where Ohio State is always at the bottom of this, LSU is right at the very top. So you got that, you got the home field, you got the night, and they kept it close for a half and then got absolutely killed. And if I was LSU, I would hire Sumrall. Go get John Sumrall from Tulane. He's right there in the state. Guys turned around Troy, kept it rolling at Tulane. He's young, full of piss and vinegar. That's the dude. That's the dude right there. Ole Miss, Oklahoma, 34-26. Ole Miss wins, and Ole Miss now just about officially a playoff team. Ole Miss is legit. They're legit. That quarterback is a dude, man. Oklahoma's defense, they weren't horrible, but that's not going to cut it, man. John Mateer, everybody loved him, week 2, week 3. Well, week 2, we really loved him against Michigan. He was 17 for 31 for 223, 13 carries for 17 yards. And at the end of the game, Oklahoma needed a first down. They needed a drive. It was on 3rd and 7 and 4th and 7. He chooses to push it down the field where there's short routes open to pick up the first down. What is this guy doing, man? He's not there mentally yet. Maybe he will be next year. But Ole Miss, they've got South Carolina, Citadel, Florida, and Mississippi State, and they can lose one of those and still make the playoffs. So they're in. Lane Kiffin and his dudes are in, and Florida folks are pissed because they didn't want Ole Miss to make the playoffs so they could hurry up and get him hired. My big takeaway from this game, when I look at Oklahoma, they come off this game, bad game, lose the game. Brent Venables loses his second game this year, and the schedule he's got left, it's tough. It looks like they'll probably win. They'll probably split. They'll probably win 2 out of the next 4. So looking like about an 8-4 season for Oklahoma after a really bad season last year. And last night and today, as I'm listening to Oklahoma fans, they're all defending Venables. They're blaming it on Mateer. They're blaming it on the offensive line coach. This is Venables' operation. And I find it interesting because when I look at Ohio State and I look at Oklahoma, and I've always said that, I think Ohio State, part of the reason Ohio State has never had a downtime is because of the insane amount of pressure that is shouldered by everyone who makes it into a position at Ohio State, from the administration on down, that plays a role with the football program. Like, the pressure is so immense to get this right that they are always on it 100%. And we've just seen it continue to roll. Oklahoma, if you were to say, like, okay, who's the number 2 program that's never had a down period? It's Oklahoma. And then it's a gap. So Ohio State gap, Oklahoma gap, everybody else. So they've always been like that, a blue blood, that they're number 5 on the all-time program list, on the official Juckeye rankings. But that may be changing because they got a lot of excuses for Brent Venables. And if we were in that role, nobody would be making excuses for Venables at this point. Oh, you made bad hires? That's your fault, pal. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry. You already got your chance to reboot and hire a new offensive coordinator, Ben Arbuckle, who brought in his quarterback. Like, you already got your reboot. Now it's you, and your head's on the chopping block next if this doesn't work out. Truth is, their schedule was so tough this year. I don't think 8-4 is that bad, but the excuse making that I'm seeing, it's wild to me. Alabama beats South Carolina 29-22. Bama won 4 wins in a row against ranked teams. And I was really hoping towards the end of this game that they were going to lose, because this loss right here would have blown up Ty Simpson's Heisman campaign. But it's going to keep on rolling. It's going to keep on rolling. And Alabama is hard to kill, just like Georgia last week. I mean, they're just hard to kill. When a team, I don't know what it is about those two. They're hard for these SEC programs to beat, even when they got them on the ropes. They can't ever put them away. And South Carolina couldn't. Lenora Sellers, gets stripped at the 38-yard line late in the game. Bama gets the ball. Jeremy Bernard scores with a broken finger. They had Bernard running the ball. Like, your running game is so bad, you got a wide receiver running the ball. And I'm telling you what, man, these guys rushed their running backs for 13 rushes for 36 yards. And they're up here watching Justice Haynes, who they let walk out the door, tear it up for Michigan. So that's got to be terrible. But Bama, a gritty win, right? Isn't that how it goes? You lose to it, or you win against a 3-5 team, and it was really, really close. That's a gritty win down in the SEC. Cincinnati wins again. Cincinnati undefeated in the Big 12, 41-20 over Baylor. Their quarterback, number 3 in the country in passing grade per PFF, Julian Sayin, number 1. And Cincinnati inches closer to a potential playoff berth if they can win the Big 12. Now, BYU and Cincinnati sit at the top of the Big 12. BYU 41-7 over Iowa State. I'm sorry, 41-27 over Iowa State. And they are fixing for a big-time showdown. If they can keep it rolling, Texas Tech and Houston, both 4-1, hold those guys off. Cincinnati could potentially make the playoffs. That would be so awesome. South Florida, Alex Golish's boys went up and lost in an awesome game against Memphis in the battle for the G6 playoff spot. And it's kind of looking like it's going to be one of those two. Now, Memphis got a really tough schedule left. They still got to play Tulane and I think Navy as well. Navy's looking really good. So South Florida, Memphis, Navy, one of those programs probably going to get the G6 bid. And that is actually kind of exciting for me this year because Boise last year, aside from Genty, I didn't think it was a very good team. I think these are 3 pretty good teams that can potentially compete. On our Heisman watch, Fernando Mendoza was just 15-22, 168, 3 touchdowns. Ty Simpson, just 24-43 for 253. But he did come back on the road in a really gritty win, right? But Julian's case did not take much damage from the 2 of them this week. So the odds for the national championship now, Ohio State plus 250. That's the best they've had this year, so they got even better. Now that's more like Georgia in 2022. So Vegas giving Ohio State the respect that the voting public is not. Indiana overtakes Bama for the second spot there at plus 600, and that's obviously the first time in program history they've ever been plus 600 to win a national championship. Alabama plus 750, then a log jam with Georgia, Notre Dame, Texas A&M, and Oregon, all at plus 1,000. Then you fall off a cliff to Miami, Ole Miss, Texas Tech. Then you fall off another cliff. So of those teams, who do you think has a realistic shot to win a national championship? Ohio State, Indiana, Notre Dame, Texas A&M, Alabama, Ole Miss, Georgia, Miami, Oregon, Texas Tech. What are you thinking here? I think I'm going to narrow that down for tonight's episode of Buckeye Huddle Primetime. That'll be tonight at 8 p.m. Oh my gosh, I got this new license plate on my car. Well, my wife's car technically, but the one that I drive, the self-driving car. Anyway, get the license plate. Would you know that it's got 3 letters and then some numbers? And the first 3 letters are K-U-C. And I got to tell you, I don't appreciate that. I don't appreciate that one bit. My kids are laughing at me. All right, so here's the top 25. Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M, the clear 1, 2, 3. Alabama and Georgia, number 4 and 5. Oregon, 6. Ole Miss, 7. Georgia Tech, 8. Vandy, 9, which is just unbelievable to me. Miami, 10. When we look down the board looking for potential Big Ten contenders, you got Michigan at 21, USC at 23. South Carolina's 3 and 5. Ask yourself, if Ohio State was to come back and beat Michigan State, another 3 and 5 team, do you think Ohio State would drop? Or do you think that people would say it was a gritty win? Because that's what happened with Alabama. It's all being excused that they had to come back in the last minute to beat South Carolina, a 3-5 team. Would they treat it the same if it was Ohio State and Michigan State? You know they wouldn't. I heard SEC folks saying, well, that's because South Carolina lost to 5 ranked teams. They lost to Vanderbilt. They lost to Missouri, LSU, Oklahoma, and Alabama. It's a bunch of great ranked teams. What about Michigan State? Well, they lost to ranked USC, ranked Nebraska at the time, UCLA, and number 2 Indiana. So, in Michigan. So they lost to a bunch of ranked teams as well. It's basically identical. But if Ohio State were to play the game that Alabama played against South Carolina, against Michigan State, they would have been dinged, guaranteed. Instead, Bama sits at number 4. And I got a real issue when we talk about the 2 lost teams. Nebraska, for instance, unranked, they're 6-2. Washington, unranked, they're 6-2. Iowa, unranked, they're 6-2. Michigan is the only ranked team in the Big Ten that's 6-2. USC is 5-2, and they're ranked. That's just clear name brand bias that Michigan and USC are ranked, and those ones aren't. But when we go to the SEC, they're 6-2 teams. Texas is 6-2. Texas is 6-2. They're ranked number 20 in the country. They're ahead of Michigan. They're ahead of SC. Texas does not have a single good win on the year. Their resume is horrific, and they certainly don't look the part. Tennessee is 6-2. They're number 14. Missouri is 6-2. Number 19. They're all ahead of the Big Ten teams. Oklahoma is 6-2. Oklahoma's number 18. So every single one of the SEC's teams that are 6-2 are ranked. And you got 3 Big Ten teams that are 6-2 that are not ranked. And that really burns me, man. That really burns me. There are some people who say, it doesn't matter. Who cares? It'll figure itself out if those teams win. The point is, just like the argument that we just had with South Carolina, that the SEC fans were saying, well, South Carolina lost to a bunch of ranked teams. That's how you continue to prop someone up if they lose. Well, they lost to a good team. They were ranked. Or you prop up their wins if they win. They won and they beat a ranked team. So you make the bad teams look better. You make the good teams look better, and you win both up. Coming and going, you win. You win either way. And this has got to start changing. When we look at those programs, Washington, to me, better than I think I would probably say Tennessee, Missouri, certainly the additions of Tennessee and Missouri as they stand right now, I would take them over them. Iowa, I'm not sure. They're a great enigma. Iowa's just a team. You just got to see them play against somebody. You never know what's going to happen with Iowa. There are some programs that have a really rough time against Iowa. They're just a different matchup for people. So who knows? Nebraska, I think that offensive line going to get them in trouble with anybody. So maybe they'd be the one on the bottom of those lists out of all those teams. But you get the point, man. How are all their 6-2 teams ranked, and 3 of the Big Ten's 6-2 are not ranked? Like that's garbage. That's just garbage. So curious to see what happens when they roll out the real rankings, the CFP rankings, which isn't too far away. Anyway, guys, Buckeye Huddle Prime Time tonight at 8 p.m. Please join me there live. Look forward to seeing you. If you haven't subscribed to the show yet, now is a great time to do so. It's the currency by which all the creators that you enjoy on YouTube operate with. So we need those subscriptions. We need those likes. And you guys are the best. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon. Chuck and Bucks out.